All right, with an impressive alumni list of close to 200,000 former students spread across the world, the University of Nairobi is perhaps the most qualified institutions to start and nurture the constitutionalism debate. Now, after inaugurating our constitution slightly more than 3 years ago, the difficult, slow process of implementing the constitution remains our country's most top priority. Central to this is constitutionalism, the fact and belief that regular Kenyans understand and believe that document, that it belongs to them, they own it, they know where it came from, they will protect, but most important, that document called the Constitution works for all Kenyans. It's on this basis that tonight we set off this conversation, and joining me in studio is none other than the chair of Constitution Implementation Commission, Charles Nchai. Karibu sana.
Asante.
And indeed, Vice Chancellor, University of Nairobi, Professor George Magoha. Gentlemen,
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's start this conversation on a very broad spectrum. Let me start with you, Prof. Starting off this constitutional debate, 2010, we've inaugurated the Constitution. More than 3 years later, how do you think the role of institutions like yourself should be, to start nurturing that constitutionalism, that idea, that belief that this is our document, there are things in it that we believe in, and it works for us?
First of all, it's important to note that even though there was passion for the Constitution, perhaps civic education was not done to the level that was required. As a result, a government agency like us, the University of Nairobi, which is big, we are big in the sense that we are about 68,000 students now, with 7,500 members of staff and a huge base of alumni of over 146,000. That's over 200,000. We are the gold standard university in this region, and we have trained perhaps almost 80% of the people who have been involved in constitutional making process and implementation in this country, starting with the Bombers process and going right down to the CIC headed by Charles Nchai, but I dare say that Professor Wanyande is one of our staff,
yes,
together with Elizabeth Muli. It's on that basis that we thought that as a state agency of government, we should spearhead the process of sensitization about the Constitution. And the reason for this is basically because we strongly believe that until such a time that the Kenyan public understands the Constitution, we shall not be moving anywhere near our blueprint, the development plan of Vision 2030.
All right, yeah. Very well spoken. Chair, just where we are, you deal with these constitutional matters a lot, right? And it's always thrown at you when we don't agree on these clauses here. We always come to you for referencing and all that. The regular Kenyan, the one who just wants to go about their business, their all interest is, how do I bring food to my table? Yeah. How do I focus on things? How does this document even help me? How does this document start speaking to these people?
Yeah. First of all, the starting point has to be that the Constitution of Kenya 2010, as indeed it speaks for itself, is a document that represents the collective will of the people of Kenya. That's why the preamble of the Constitution starts with the words, "We the people." And the end of that preamble says that we enact and give unto ourselves and to future generations this Constitution. So the Constitution is about the people, and in it, it encapsulates the hopes, aspirations of the people of Kenya, and there we're talking about the entire spectrum of the people of Kenya. And if you look at the Constitution, it's a radical document, it's transformative. The reason for this is that Kenyans are coming from a certain history, and they have decided that, informed by that history, we need to do certain things about how we govern ourselves, what standards we set for ourselves, what are the benchmarks that we set for ourselves, and that this will then, if we implement this, if we adhere to this, this will change our lives. Whether, if you look right across the Constitution, whether you're talking about the Bill of Rights, whether you're talking about the chapter that deals with leadership and integrity, whether you're talking about the chapter that deals with public financial management, the public service, and of course, the great pillar of our Constitution, the chapter on devolution, which is a completely new system of governance that the people believed in, that is going to bring resources closer to them, is going to bring power closer to them, it is going to bring decision-making closer to them, because they believe that that way it's going to make a difference to their lives. Now, that's the document. Therefore, the big challenge for all of us, and this is really what we are talking about here today, is how we translate that document as a document to implement it in such a way that day to day it will actually deliver to the people the benefits that they contemplated when they adopted the Constitution.
Let me bring in Prof into this conversation. Prof, you must be commended to be one of the first agencies, if not the first, to come out and say we want this to work, we want this implementation to actually work through our institution and through the processes. How does this document come to life for you and this big institution that is the University of Nairobi?
Yes, as you remember, the University of Nairobi is organized where there's a central administration, then we have the 6 colleges, and then we have got the deans and directors and departments which are either central or academic. So we have a good network, and the way we have operationalized this is to make sure that of the 12 policies that we have made sure that the Constitution has been, they have been aligned to the Constitution. We first of all started by making sure that both hard and soft copies of the Constitution was forwarded to each and every member of staff and student. And we are at a level where we want to extend this now to the alumni base. We strongly believe that when this is done, then we shall reach a wider group outside there. With regard to how our procedures are done, you'll find that, for example, when you look at our recruitment and training policy, for example, right now we have enshrined the Constitution in the process, even at the shortlisting stage, where we look at gender issues, we look at issues of minority, and after the interviews, every appointment at the university is brought to me to check whether people have complied. Another one is the disability policy which we have. You know, the Constitution basically says that we should strive towards the 5%, but we are trying our very best, even though performance is the best indicator. Where there is a disabled person with the qualities that we require, that person is taken ahead of the others.
Indeed, to meet the constitutional requirements.
Yeah, so the university has internalized this, and basically I think we are doing well in that direction. Yes.
Prof, let me just bring you to a national conversation that is happening now, and Chair has just mentioned about it, this issue of devolution, and talking about 47 counties and 47 units of governance, and everyone is looking at how they can develop, how these county governments are making sense to them. In terms of education, in terms of training, in terms of institution, where does this place you? Where does this place the University of Nairobi?
First of all, I would want to emphasize that we are the biggest state agency of government in the education sector. If you want to say, should we devolve the university, I would say no. If you want to say, I work for both the Ministry of Health as the chairman of the Medical and Dental Practitioners Board and the Ministry of Education. If you want to say, let me first of all clarify one thing very clearly. I am not a politician and I don't do politics, so I'm talking from an academic point of view. If you are to ask my personal opinion about, for example, devolving functions of healthcare, I would say the Constitution says you take 3 years. Let us not rush. Let us be ready. Let us make sure that the counties have the capacity and the infrastructure to carry out that function. It's not just a question of saying, well, let us carry the functions to the county when you have no capacity nor wherewithal to carry them on. That's an academic's point of view. And since the Constitution says we have 3 years, why do you have to do it yesterday? This is what I don't understand, but that's my personal view. With regard to other aspects of devolution, I think the politicians perhaps are the best, as long as they remember that there are also other stakeholders like us. Because when they talk, they think there is no other stakeholder, it is just them. It is important for us, in my view, to consider that perhaps it is better to allow the Constitution to run a little bit longer before we start to mutilate it, because the same people who made the Constitution yesterday, before it is tomorrow, they want to mutilate it. And an academic like me cannot understand why.
Yeah. And that's a genuine question. And Chair, just right in front of your doorstep, devolution is this thing that we're trying to unbundle, and it's a big mess right in front of our face. We don't know even what we're dealing with currently. And as we try to have agencies like you and we're trying to say, let's implement this Constitution, what is this process even about? We're already talking about how to change it and things that don't make sense about it, things that are already in political forums. Just where's that clear line of what this Constitution talks about if UN today decides they want devolution, for instance, aspects of devolution to work for them? Where's that clear line?
Let me begin by agreeing with what Professor has said. First of all, and I think we need to state this plainly, that this Constitution is about the people of Kenya. It's not about the political class. It's not about one particular state organ or another state organ. It's all about the people of Kenya. The biggest stakeholder, indeed the owner of this Constitution, is the collectivity of the people of Kenya. And therefore, anything that discusses about, for example, making any changes or amendments to that Constitution should first and foremost be demonstrating how that is for the benefit of the people of Kenya. So that's the first point I wanted to make. Then let me say this about devolution. Devolution, like I said earlier, is one of the principal pillars of the Constitution that the people of Kenya adopted in the year 2010. And there are reasons why the people of Kenya adopted devolution. And if you look at the Constitution and you look at what the principles of devolution are, you will see that what devolution seeks to do is to bring about equality, to recognize the different historical issues that there have been, to recognize the need to enable the people to be involved in decision making, and to enable them to sort of eradicate inequalities. Now, so it's all about the people. But the framers of the Constitution recognize that this is a radical change. It's a radical move. We've learned lessons from the way that the central government has operated for 50 years. And if it had operated in a manner that was satisfactory, we wouldn't, as a country, have moved to this new system of devolution. But the framers of the Constitution recognize that this must be done in a manner that does not prejudice the very people for whom devolution is being established, so that there must be a seamless delivery of services. The focus must be that delivery of services, and they therefore provided for a mechanism to establish laws that provide criteria for the process of transfer. The Constitution itself provides a time frame, and the Constitution requires that legislation establishes mechanisms, because the Commission for the Implementation of the Constitution is given, in addition to the general mandate that the Constitution gives it, is given under Section 15 of the 6th Schedule of the Constitution, a very specific mandate to ensure the effective implementation of the system of devolution. And therefore legislation sets up, for example, the Transition Authority as such a mechanism to ensure that this transition happens in an orderly manner. It happens in a manner that does not prejudice the very people that it sets to serve, and that service to the people is seamless, and presumably that ultimately the service to the people will be improved, because otherwise, if it's not going to be improved,
why are we doing it?
Why would we be doing it?
Yes.
So really what we are saying, James, is that I think we must have the courage as a country to say we have a constitution and we have legislation that is made pursuant to that constitution. Let's follow that, and let's do this systematically so that we get it right for the benefit of the ordinary Kenyan.
Yeah, Prophet, we've been talking about assumption here about, everyone really wants this constitution to work and everyone believes it's a good document. But truth be told, there are people who don't think it's a good document. There are people who would not want it to work in a big institution such as yours. How do you deal with such cases, such activities, such people who would say, or would even do activities that in the end would, jeopardize this process?
I strongly believe that if everybody is sensitized properly about this constitution, if you have read the constitution, I'm not a lawyer, I'm a surgeon. If you have read the constitution and you compare it with the former constitution, it is a very good document. It removes the tribal discrimination that existed in the past. It removes the powers that were excessively vested in certain individuals, like the president in the past, and so many other good things there. Why would we want to change it? These are the same people who created this animal. Why would you want to change it? I think my view here is that, having been trained as a manager, I would still try to convince them that let us try to see if this constitution can work. Let us talk to our people and change their mindset. If tribalism is the problem, let us address the tribalism, because it is not the constitution. Perhaps it is our mindset, it is what we think. If you are talking about the dictatorship of numbers, why don't we work on that as we sensitize our people against the constitution? Because a hungry person, whether it's from Northeastern or from Kisumu or from Mount Kenya, is still a hungry Kenyan. A jobless Kenyan, whether it's from Kisumu or from Siaya or from Mount Kenya, is still jobless. You don't get special treatment because you come from any particular part. So we could be targeting the wrong thing. I think whereas it is quite in order to amend the constitution, I believe that the people who are concerned and the powers that be have not tried hard enough to address the issues that are causing them to want to amend this constitution. That is my message. And I think I'm pleading with them that they should try harder to make our children think like Kenyan children, not children from this part or that part, because the constitution has removed all that. So it is the mindset, and I think we should work on it.
And I also think that, to talk about amending the constitution while we are really still in the throes of trying to implement it, I think is to send the wrong signals. For example, what we were launching today at the University of Nairobi, which is really the university's approach to how they want to sensitize the university community to understand and internalize this constitution, and therefore play their part in terms of the wider implementation of the constitution. Now, if we are doing that, and we're in the middle of that, and at the same time we are saying, oh, this constitution, which we haven't even really completed trying to implement, that this constitution already requires amendments, then we are sending the wrong signals. And I go back to what I said at the beginning. We are sending the wrong signals, and we are not doing that on behalf of Wanjiko. We are not doing that on behalf of the ordinary Kenyan. We're doing that because either political players or groups of political players or existing organs that are established by the Constitution are having issues amongst themselves or finding it inconvenient And on that basis, we want to start talking about amending the Constitution. I think that would be really, at this stage, a disservice to the people of Kenya.
And I think we have reason to be listened to. If you look at our past record, during the performance, the
contracting
process, since this was started in 2004, we are the only unit in the public service that has achieved the grade of excellence. And we feel that as technocrats, as people who are people of letters, our opinion should be listened to, even though it might be a small opinion. But I think the people should listen to it and give it a thought. Because we love our country. Governments come and go. But like our university will always be there. And like I have said, we have produced everybody, even people in government, starting from the deputy president, the former vice. I don't want to list them. So the voice of the University of Nairobi is it's a voice of concern that perhaps our people, including the other universities, should take part in this sensitization process and give the Constitution a reasonably fair chance before you decide to amend it. It's not to say that we don't want you to amend, but we are thinking perhaps most people don't even want, they don't even know what you want to amend. And this, for us who are not political, is a big problem. Because then the last Constitution, I was told this morning by Bonangecha here, that it was amended 39 times. Most of the time, not for public interest. Now, 50 years is a long time. Have we not learned anything at all? That is the question I would want to put to our own people and to our own leaders. Yeah.
And the other question, I mean, for your institution, someone like you who runs a public institution, the question of tribalism and nepotism, the question that will always come to your doorstep and your desk to deal with at every given chance and opportunity. How do you feel, as the Vice Chancellor of University of Nairobi today, that this process and this new Constitution has helped you to sort out this problem, as opposed to if this were given a chance, say, last year or 2009 or when you're beginning?
The University of Nairobi has enjoyed the new Constitution very much, especially in this area, even before that time, if you looked at my management structure, it already had the face of Kenya. But we now had the capacity to go down and make sure that in every aspect of the university, in the colleges, in the schools, in the faculties, in the departments, unless you are a very top expert, we were able to put the face of the country among our staff, and it is there to be seen. The facts are there. I am supported, and nobody can say, oh, you are doing this because of this. If you look at my own office, it is not my fault that I come from Siaya, but there are other Kenyans there. There's somebody from Kisii there, there's somebody from Nyeri there, there is somebody from quite a number of other areas. I think we have different tribal groups. It is not by design. It is by just making sure that the face of the country, even there is a Kalenjin and a Maasai and so on. This law is good. It is extremely good because in the past, I would have filled my office with Jaluos only, and it would have been okay. If I can do it at the top, nobody else under me is doing anything different. And I think everybody is happy, and the issues of nepotism and tribalism and so on have been controlled. Why do we want to? So from the university perspective, like I told you, people will always say, oh, that man is completely tribal. But if you care to come and look at it, it is the exact opposite. I am empowered to say, this person is from Northeastern, he went to a Northeastern school, let him go and do medicine even though he has 3 points less. And those students are there. Some of them are about to graduate, and so on and so forth. If there's somebody from Central Province and Siaya and another one from Turkana, we have deliberately taken the Turkana. because they don't exist. Remembering the School of Education where there's somebody by the name of Awoi who, even though he did not have a PhD, I insisted that he has got to be employed because he was able to give enough, and we are sponsoring him to move forward. So in that aspect, I think if everybody was to follow this constitution, it would change Kenya in the long run. Yeah.
And remember, the University of Nairobi as a major public institution, if you look at the constitution right across, it is bound by the chapter on the Bill of Rights. It's bound, if you look at the chapter on the public service, you're talking about things like competitiveness, merit, transparency, accountability. It is bound, of course, by the provisions in the public financial management sector. So really, actually, the University of Nairobi actively taking on the issue of ensuring that the Constitution is implemented and becomes a way of life is, from my perspective, in terms of, and our commission, in terms of overseeing the process of the implementation of the Constitution, is really a great, is a great step, it's a great leap, because we have the opportunity of a major public institution that is leading the way to ensure that the Constitution actually is not only implemented, but constitutionalism becomes a way of life in such a major public institution.
To the next question, as we try and wind this down, the question of openness, you know, and that is something that, again, in management, and you, for the last 10 years, you've done a great job. Probably everyone has commented and talked about that. But the question of openness is right at the center of this new drive, you know, constitutionalism. And for you, I don't know what your thoughts are in terms of how running such a public institution, a big institution like yourself, what are some of the thoughts that in your 10 years or so you've gathered, and that you've noticed that in this new constitution, that's something that you could pick up and you could run with, and they could help setting the precedent for people who will come after you?
Well, openness is double-edged, and I would like to be, again, very clear here. The process of examinations is sacrosanct at the university, because students will always be students. So if somebody was to order me that, oh, I want the results of A, B, C, D, even though the Constitution says I should give, I'll say, no, go and give me a court order, because there could be consequences. If I was to give, again, the results of a patient that I'm treating, I am a surgeon by training, and somebody says, I want the results of this person, and that person quotes the Constitution, I will say, please go and get a court order for me to give it to you. But in general, it is good, because then it allows everything to be in the open domain. In fact, the University of Nairobi has an open access policy right now. Quite a number of, in fact, all our policies are open. You can get access to them on the net. Quite a number of our works are in the repository, which is also open. So it is good. You can no longer say that, oh, we are detaining you, but there's no reason, like in the past. You can't say that you have failed, but we cannot give you the results. The point I'm trying to make is that the information should be given to the right person. If it is to be given to the third person, the Constitution also says you should not give information where it can be used for other things, which could be injurious to the other person. So it's an open-edged thing. It is good, but the citizens should use it with decorum. Yeah, because even right now, I will not tell you about who, but people are demanding that we release some schedules of people. We are saying, no, please go to court and give us a court order, so that when the person feels aggrieved, we'll say, no, we are ordered by a court of law to give. Yeah.
I don't know what your contribution will be, because as we try to get this constitutionalism, many Kenyans will tell you, we've seen it on the newspaper, we've read about it, but in terms of how public institutions are run, it hasn't really come down to the normal person, to how I'd feel it.
Yeah, I think I have no problem with what Professor is saying. And even when we talk about, for example, the right to information, the freedom of information, the Constitution is not really targeting that sort of information. It is targeting information which ought to be in the public domain. You know, there is certain information. For example, I would have a problem if a professor declined to divulge. You see, the Constitution talks about, say, the gender ratios, you know, in the staff in the university, or say the question of regional diversity. I mean, that is information which, you know, is information that should be available to the public. And that's the sort of information that we are talking about, that when the Constitution talks about, you know, as a national value, we're talking about transparency and accountability. When the provisions on public service talk about competitiveness and merit and so on, those are issues which must be in the public domain when you're dealing with a public institution. And my understanding is that, you know, the professor does not have an issue with that. I mean, what he's talking about is information, data which even in any event is data which would be protected except under certain circumstances. But the whole point is the principle and the value of transparency and accountability in how public affairs are run.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, Prof. My final question, as I wind this down. Today, where we are in this country, would you say institutions like yourself, the University of Nairobi, is at a better place going forward with this constitution or without this constitution? Where would you place our future in this country?
I want to say that I am grateful for the government because it has left us to run the university professionally without interference. The coming of the Constitution is an additional benefit. If they were to allow us to implement the Constitution without any interference, the sky will be the limit. Because if you look at what has happened to the University of Nairobi in particular over the last 10 years, the government, we are an agency of government, all right, and they look at what we are doing, but they have not interfered over the last 10 years. As a result, the university has risen as a giant and gone to the sky. The Constitution has come towards the time when we are getting to the sky. And right now, the University of Nairobi, or you would argue that we are supposed to be number one in this country. Yes, we are, but we are now number 14 in Africa out of 1,000 odd universities in just 50 years. And in the world, we are number 1,600 out of 24,000 universities just in 50 years. That is a phenomenal growth. So if the Constitution is implemented, I believe it will only make the university a better place. It would mean that perhaps the next Vice Chancellor will be a Turkana or a Pokot or somebody else from somewhere else. Mm-hmm. It will be fantastic.
That's what you want to see?
Yes.
All right. And for you? Yeah,
the beauty about the Constitution that we have and the constitutionalism which we aspire to and which we are obligated to promote is that if you take the context of the University of Nairobi, is that it becomes a way of life. It becomes the way that we do things. It will not depend on the goodwill of the particular government of the day. It will not depend on the personality or character of the Vice Chancellor, so that maybe because the Vice Chancellor is tougher than the previous one, therefore government bends in a little and gives him his way. It just becomes the way of life that we do things. So I think the University of Nairobi and all other universities, as well as other institutions, and indeed all of us as individuals or as groups or as institutions throughout the country will be all the better for us as a country ensuring that we inculcate constitutionalism as a way of life. And as a professor has given the example that if we implement the Constitution, maybe the next vice chancellor of the university will be at Turkana. And beyond there, if we really implement this Constitution as envisaged, maybe the next president of this country will be an El Molo or even, I don't know if there's a smaller community in Kenya. And that's where we want to be.
Yes.
Yes.
Gentlemen, I must thank you both. Professor George Magoha, Vice Chancellor at the University of Nairobi, and Charles Nechai, Chair of CIC. Thank you very much for both making time. All right, we'll be talking about that constitutionalism, quite a mouthful, but very important for this country to go forward in the next few days and weeks and years. That is a word that we should actually live by. Thank you very much. My name has been James Smart. It's been a pleasure. Let's do this all over again sometime soon. Sleep well.